He said I'd never be anything without him. Then I became his new boss. I never thought the man I once trusted would steal my work and try to destroy my career, but I definitely never imagined I'd become his boss. The quarterly review room felt colder than usual. I sat at the long table, my presentation deck in front of me, except it wasn't mine anymore. My manager slid the papers across the polished wood, and I noticed immediately that my name was gone. Every chart, every strategy, every late night I'd poured into that project had been erased. He leaned back in his chair with that smug smile I'd grown to hate and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You're nothing without me, and this proves it." My stomach dropped. The SVP at the head of the table looked between us, confused. I'd sent him my original files just yesterday. My hands trembled as I reached for my water glass. The other managers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I swallowed hard and asked the only question that mattered. "So you're claiming authorship?" He didn't even hesitate. Obviously. The SVP frowned and made a note on his tablet. "We'll revisit this in a moment," he said quietly. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. It hadn't always been this way. I remembered the beginning, the late nights in the office when it was just the two of us, working on strategies that would change our department. He'd been my manager for 6 months when he said those words that changed everything. "Stick with me and you'll rise." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He had the experience, the connections, the confidence I was still building. When I got my first promotion, he took me out to celebrate. He told me I was talented, that together we'd be unstoppable. But slowly things shifted. He started fixing my drafts before presentations. At first, I thought he was mentoring me. Then I noticed my ideas coming out of his mouth in meetings, with no mention of where they came from. My carefully researched reports became his executive briefings. I tried to brush it off. Maybe that's just how corporate worked. Then HR misplaced the emails where I'd outlined my contributions to our biggest project. Just once, they said. A technical glitch. But I knew better. When I ended our relationship, both professional trust and the personal connection that had formed, he didn't get angry. He smiled like a shark circling prey. We were standing in the parking garage after everyone else had gone home. The fluorescent lights buzzed above us. "You'll never be anything without me," he said, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. I thought he was just hurt. I was wrong. The next week, my projects vanished from the company tracker. Tasks I'd been leading for months were suddenly reassigned without explanation. My name disappeared from distribution lists. In meetings, people looked past me like I was invisible. That's when I started keeping a clean paper trail. I calendared every email. I saved version histories with timestamps. I collected receipts from stakeholders confirming my work. Then finance sent me a quiet warning. "Your forecasts don't line up with what he presented." I pulled up my original numbers. They were completely different. 2 weeks later, he called me into his office. A project had failed. One of his shortcuts had blown up spectacularly. He closed the door and handed me a folder. "Rework this so the blame lands on your team," he said casually, like he was asking me to proofread an email. I stared at the papers. Every cell in my body screamed no. "That would violate policy," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm documenting this conversation in writing." His jaw tightened. "You're being emotional." I stood up, walked out, and sent an email citing the exact policy number he'd asked me to break. I requested that HR attach my documentation to my file. 3 days later, HR called me in. They said I was creating unnecessary tension. That I needed to be a team player. My hands were sweating as I sat across from them. When my annual review came, my rating dropped from exceeds expectations to meets expectations. There was no evidence, no feedback, no explanation. Just a downgrade. I started applying to other companies quietly. I updated my resume at home, used my personal email, told no one. Most applications disappeared into the void, like they always do. Then one firm replied within 24 hours. "We've been watching your outcomes. We'd like to talk." During the interview, they pulled up vendor reports. My initials were all over the successful projects. The paper trail I'd been keeping had leaked beyond our walls. They knew whose work was really driving results. They offered me a lateral move with room to grow. No drama, no big announcement. I accepted immediately. I didn't give an exit interview. I didn't need to. I simply turned in my resignation, worked my 2 weeks with my head down, and walked out on a Friday afternoon. No goodbye party. No farewell email. Just freedom. 2 months later, I heard my old company announced a strategic review. Everyone knew what that meant. They were being sold. At my new firm, I kept my promises simple and my documentation clean. I delivered results without politics, built relationships without games. My director noticed. She asked me to coffee one morning and got straight to the point. We're looking at acquiring a troubled regional portfolio. Would you consider a stretch role leading the integration? I said yes before she finished her sentence. Then she smiled. The portfolio includes your old company's region. My coffee suddenly tasted bitter. The room spun slightly. She continued, due diligence needs someone who knows their systems inside and out. Someone who understands where the problems are.
She paused.
We want you to lead it. I took a breath. This was professional. This was business. When do we start? I asked. She slid a folder across the table. Tomorrow. I spent 3 weeks buried in spreadsheets and dashboards. Every metric told the same story. The region had been declining steadily for 18 months. Right after I left. The numbers were brutal. The projects where my ex-manager had taken bows had cratered within quarters. Client retention was down. Revenue projections had been consistently inflated, then quietly adjusted downward after board presentations. A clean pattern emerged. He would promise the moon in forecasts, then blame execution issues when reality hit. I dug deeper into the project timelines. 3 major initiatives, all of them mine originally, had been replaced with riskier shortcuts after I left. Every approval form had the same initials at the bottom.
His.
I created a comparison document. My original conservative plans versus his aggressive pivots. My projected outcomes versus actual results. The difference was staggering. My new director reviewed everything with legal. They were quiet for a long time. Finally, she looked up. This is solid work. Keep going. The acquisition closed 2 weeks later. I was named regional director over the very floor I'd escaped. Before I walked back into that building, I spent a week mapping every variance to documented policy breaches. Missed deadlines, vendor favoritism, off-process edits. All tracked, all time-stamped, all backed by evidence. I wasn't building a case for revenge. I was building a case for recovery. Legal reviewed my audit. The head attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia, leaned back in her chair. We don't punish people here. We fix broken processes. But we need to understand how deep this goes. She pushed the files back across her desk. Keep going. I found contract modifications that hadn't gone through proper channels. Budget shifts that violated spending authority. Presentation decks sent to clients that contradicted our actual capabilities. Every thread led back to the same place. Shortcuts taken to look good in the moment, consequences pushed to the future. If you're enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to like this story and also hit the subscribe button to get notified of our new series. I compiled everything into a clean report. No accusations. Just facts, dates, and policy numbers. The acquisition officially closed on a Tuesday morning. That afternoon, I got the call. My first day back felt surreal. I walked through the same doors I'd left 8 months earlier. The lobby looked smaller somehow. The receptionist did a double take when she saw me. I took the elevator to the 4th floor. My old floor. When I stepped out, I saw him immediately. He was standing by the coffee machine, laughing with 2 other managers.
Then he turned and saw me.
The color drained from his face. You. The word hung in the air. Everyone in the hallway stopped talking. I walked straight to him, extended my hand, and spoke loud enough for the team to hear. We start clean. Performance over politics. That's how we'll turn this around. He shook my hand because he had to. His palm was sweating. I headed to my new office, the corner one that used to belong to the regional VP. As I settled in and opened my laptop, I found an email waiting. No sender name, just a blank address. The message was 3 words: check his side contracts. I spent the next week rolling out new norms. Everything transparent, everything documented. Source files stored centrally. Authorship logs for every document. Weekly stand-ups with rotating presenters, so everyone got visibility. The change was immediate. Ideas started flowing from people who'd gone silent. A woman in analytics who hadn't spoken in meetings for months presented a brilliant tracking system. A junior associate proposed a client engagement model that was better than anything I'd seen. They'd been there all along, just buried. My ex-manager watched it happen with his arms crossed, leaning against walls during meetings, contributing nothing. Then he sent me a meeting request. Private catch-up. Just us. I accepted. Professional. Neutral. The night before our meeting, I got a ping from compliance.
Routine audit stuff, they said.
But one line stood out. We found a personal Gmail address linked to your vendor portal. Did you authorize this? I checked the timestamp. It was from 14 months ago, right when I was still there. He arrived exactly on time, closed the door, and sat down like he owned the place. Leaned back in the chair, hands behind his head. Let's be adults about this, he started. You and I both know how this company really works. It runs on relationships. Favors. You can't change that. I kept my face neutral. Then those favors won't survive the quarter. We're running on metrics now. He laughed. Not a real laugh, the kind meant to make you feel small. You won't last. You never understood the game. I didn't take the bait. Is there anything work-related you needed to discuss? His smile faded. Don't forget who taught you everything. I stood up. Meeting's over. After he left, I immediately called compliance back. They'd been digging deeper into the personal Gmail. It was inactive now, but the access log showed it had been used to modify meeting calendars on our vendor portal. Small changes. A time moved here. An attendee added there. Then the vendor's account manager sent me a follow-up email that made everything click. Hi. Just checking if your consultant still speaks for your team? Want to make sure we're aligned. We didn't have a consultant. We never had. I didn't accuse anyone. I verified everything. Access logs, approval timestamps, email trails, all through official channels. Patricia from legal walked me through the proper procedure step by step. The personal Gmail was definitely inactive now, but the historical data painted a clear picture. Someone had used it to coordinate with vendors outside normal processes. Not illegal, but definitely against policy. The account manager's question about a consultant was the missing piece. I asked her to send me all communications with this person. She hesitated. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. You won't, I promised. I just need to understand our history to move forward professionally. She sent them that afternoon. Dozens of emails over 6 months. Someone had been positioning themselves as having special authority to make commitments on our behalf. The metadata showed forwarding patterns that matched internal email timing. I brought everything to Patricia. She reviewed it silently, making notes. No embezzlement, she finally said. No contracts signed inappropriately, but clear misrepresentation of authority and process violations. She looked up. What do you want to do? Fix it, I said. The right way. I announced a 4-week stabilization plan in the next all-hands meeting. Nothing dramatic, just standard business recovery. Stop the bleeding, rebuild the pipeline, audit vendor relationships to ensure clarity. The team responded immediately. People started staying late voluntarily. Conversations got sharper, more honest. Morale lifted like a weight had been removed. A junior analyst named Marcus approached me after week 2. He was nervous, clutching a folder to his chest. I found these in the shared drive, he said quietly. They're old slide decks, but they have your name in the metadata. I opened the folder. My heart stopped. These were presentations from over a year ago. My format, my structure, my exact phrasing, but they'd been presented as his work. I flipped through them slowly. Every strategy I developed was there. The metadata didn't lie. Original author, creation date, last modified by. All me. Thank you, Marcus. I managed to say. This helps more than you know. He nodded and left quickly. I sat alone in my office staring at the proof. I scheduled a meeting with him and made sure HR was present. Professional. By the book. I laid the folder on the table between us. Help me understand how these presentations work. He barely glanced at them. You left. The team needed direction. I used available resources. The HR representative shifted in her seat. These show original authorship metadata. Were you aware? He shrugged. Metadata can be wrong. I kept my voice level. IT can verify original source files. Would that help clarify? For the first time, his confidence flickered. Just for a second. The HR rep made a note. I'll need you to provide original source files for these presentations by noon tomorrow.
Can you do that?
Of course, he said. But his voice had changed. After he left, the HR rep looked at me carefully. You're handling this well. I'm handling it correctly, I replied. If you're enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to like this story and also hit the subscribe button to get notified of our new series. Tomorrow at noon came and went. No source files arrived. At 12:30, he sent an email with PDF versions only. No source files. No original documents. The HR rep forwarded it to me with a single line. Not sufficient. I called IT. They'd been expecting my call. Patricia had already given them a heads up. Within 2 hours, they recovered the original files from the archive server. Every company keeps backups. Every company tracks file creation. My file names. My user ID. My timestamps. Unaltered. Undeniable. IT sent the report to HR, legal, and me simultaneously. I watched my email and saw the chain begin. HR to ethics. Ethics to his personnel file. I saw him in the hallway that afternoon. His face twitched when he looked at me, the first real crack in his armor. He said nothing, just walked past. I went back to work. The next morning, I called a team meeting. We're going to win back 3 accounts we lost last year. The right way.
No inflated promises.
Just solid work. The energy shifted. People sat up straighter. We spent 2 weeks preparing. Real proposals based on real capabilities. Conservative timelines. Honest pricing. 2 accounts signed renewals within days. They said the same thing. Finally, someone who tells us the truth. The 3rd account wanted more, a joint workshop using a framework they'd loved from before. I recognized it immediately. It was mine, the one he'd taken credit for. He volunteered to lead the workshop. Of course he did. I made a decision. You'll co-lead with Marcus. Equal responsibility. Marcus looked shocked. My ex-manager's jaw clenched. That's fair, I added. And visible. The workshop went perfectly. Marcus was brilliant, prepared, clear, confident. The client loved the clarity. After the meeting, they assigned us a pilot project. A big one. As everyone packed up, he walked past me and said quietly, I made you. Don't forget that. I stopped. Turned. You didn't make me, I said. You stood in front of me. He laughed, but I saw it in his eyes. He was rattled. The next day, compliance finished their review. Patricia called me in and laid out their findings.
No embezzlement. No fraudulent contracts.
But clear, documented misrepresentation of authorship and multiple process violations. What happens now? I asked. That depends on you, she said. You're his manager. HR needs your recommendation. I thought about it all night. I could have destroyed him.
Part of me wanted to.
But I didn't become his boss to become him. The next morning, I initiated a formal performance improvement plan. Measurable goals. Clear expectations. Documented support. 30 days.
Fair.
Standard. By the book. When I presented it to him with HR present, he smirked. A PIP? Really? He signed it like he was signing a receipt. Like it meant nothing. Week 1 milestones are here, I said, sliding another paper across. Due Friday. He waved his hand dismissively. Friday came. He missed the deadline. And when Marcus asked about it, he blamed Marcus publicly in the team chat. Marcus had receipts, screenshots, emails, everything. I scheduled a roundtable for the whole team. We had a failing campaign that needed fixing. Fast. I want everyone's input, I said. What's the solution? Ideas flowed. People built on each other's thoughts. Then he spoke up, talking over someone mid-sentence. Here's what we're going to do, he announced and bulldozed through his plan. The room went quiet. Then someone spoke up, politely but firmly. The data doesn't support that approach. Another person added, we tried something similar last year. It didn't work. Marcus pulled up metrics on the screen. These numbers show a different direction. I watched him realize he'd lost the room. Thank you, everyone, I said. We'll go with the team's recommendation. His face flushed red. He left the meeting without a word. 2 days later, HR forwarded me a formal complaint. From him. Hostile work environment. It read. Manager showing favoritism and creating unfair conditions. HR's note at the bottom. Please respond in writing within 3 business days. I worked on my response all night. I answered with dates and deliverables. Every support I'd offered him. Every resource I'd made available. Every milestone he'd missed and why. No opinions. No adjectives. Just facts. I attached the PIP documentation, the team chat screenshots, and the meeting notes where he'd been given equal opportunity to contribute. I sent it to HR exactly on time. They acknowledged receipt immediately. A week later, they closed the complaint with one word. Unsubstantiated. The same week, the pilot account sent an email that made me smile for the first time in months. Best results we've had in a year. We want to expand scope. Permanently. Marcus came to my office with a printout of the email. He was beaming. This is because of your work, I told him. Make sure your name is on everything going forward. Week 3 of the PIP arrived. He was trying now, actually trying. He showed up on time, completed some tasks, but 2 major milestones were still missed. No explanation. No communication. Week 4. His final review meeting. He arrived with a binder of work. Finally, genuine effort. Some of it was actually good. But policy is clear. Progress isn't the same as completion. HR asked me for my recommendation. I chose separation with severance. References limited to dates and titles. Policy compliant. Humane. I delivered the news with HR present. He stared at me like the room had tilted sideways. You can't do this to me, he said. His voice cracked. You need me. I slid the signed vendor renewals across the table. The expanded pilot agreement. The client testimonials. We needed good work, I said quietly. That's what we got. He stood up so fast his chair hit the wall. You're making a mistake. This company will fall apart without me. I stayed seated.
Come.
I hope you find the right fit somewhere else. He left without shaking my hand. The office was quiet after he cleaned out his desk. No celebration. No gossip. People just went back to work. I sent a company-wide email that afternoon. Leadership transition. Focus on clients. Questions welcome. 3 people stopped by my office to thank me. They didn't need to say for what. If you're enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to like this story and also hit the subscribe button to get notified of our new series. That night, I slept better than I had in 2 years.
No parade. No cake.
No dramatic speech. I called a team meeting the next morning. Thank you all for a hard month. We did this together. Then I announced a new policy and authorship standard. Every slide credits its builder. Every document tracks contributors. Version history preserved and accessible. No one's work disappears here, I said. Marcus raised his hand. Does this apply to past work too? I nodded. If you built it, your name goes on it. Retroactively. The room erupted in quiet approval. People nodding. A few smiles. That afternoon, Marcus led a new client kickoff. I sat in the back and watched him present the framework I developed years ago, with both our names on it now. My phone buzzed during the meeting. An email. From him. Please, can you talk to the recruiter who called you about me? My stomach tightened. The recruiter had contacted me yesterday for a reference. Background check for a job he'd applied to. I stared at the email for a long time. Then I called the recruiter back. I can verify dates and titles, I told the recruiter. That's our company policy for references. Did he meet performance expectations in his role? She asked. He completed a performance improvement plan, I said carefully. That's documented in his file. Would you rehire him? I paused. I can't speculate on hypotheticals. I can only speak to documented performance. She thanked me and hung up. I didn't trash him. I didn't praise him. I stuck to facts. Because that's what professionals do. His email went unanswered. Not out of spite, there was just nothing left to say. The following week, I walked past the boardroom where this all started. The quarterly review room. The SVP who'd witnessed that first humiliation was coming out.
He stopped when he saw me.
Looked at me for a moment, then nodded. Just once. We both remembered. I nodded back and kept walking. 2 months later, the region hit its first growth quarter in over a year. Marcus got promoted to senior analyst. 3 other team members got spot bonuses for exceptional work. I published the authorship standards as a company-wide best practice. Other departments started adopting them. My director called me into her office. Corporate wants you to present at the Leadership Summit. They want to know how you turned this around. I thought about what to say. How to explain it without making it about him. It wasn't about one person, I finally said. It was about creating space for everyone to contribute. She smiled. That's exactly what they need to hear. The summit was in 3 weeks. I started preparing my presentation. And I made sure to include every team member's name who'd contributed to the recovery. Because that's how it should have been all along. The Leadership Summit came. I stood on a stage in front of 200 people and told them the truth. When I took over this region, it was struggling. Not because the people weren't talented, but because talent wasn't being recognized. I walked them through the changes. Transparent systems. Documented authorship. Rotating leadership opportunities. The results speak for themselves, I said, showing the growth charts. When people get credit for their work, they do better work. Someone in the audience raised their hand. How do you handle team members who resist these changes? I thought carefully. You document expectations clearly. You provide support. And you hold everyone to the same standard, including yourself. After the presentation, people lined up to ask questions. One woman pulled me aside. I've been dealing with something similar, she said quietly. Thank you for showing there's a professional way through. I gave her my email. Reach out if you need to talk. On the flight home, I thought about how different everything looked from this side. How the fear I'd felt in that boardroom had turned into clarity. I didn't win by destroying him. I won by doing the work. Back in the office, I held my regular all-hands meeting. The team had grown by 5 people. New faces, fresh energy. At the end, I said something I'd been thinking about for weeks. I want to share something personal. When I started here, actually when I came back, I was told I was nothing without someone else. That I'd never succeed on my own. The room went quiet. I want you to know that no one here is made by anyone else. You don't rise because someone permits it. You rise because you do the work. And in this place, you'll get credit where it's due.
People nodded.
A few people looked like they needed to hear exactly that. After the meeting, Marcus stopped by my office. That guy who left. Did he really say that to you? I nodded. Well, Marcus said, I'm glad you proved him wrong. I smiled. We all did. That evening, I drove past my old apartment, the one I'd lived in when everything fell apart. When I thought my career was over. When I believed what he told me. I didn't stop.
Didn't need to.
I just kept driving forward. Because that's where everything good was waiting.